True power is invisible until it's tested. When chaos rises, when insults come, when the world demands a reaction, that's when real strength reveals itself. Not through shouting, proving, or fighting back, but through the calm, unshaken presence of someone who has mastered their inner world. This video is a journey into that kind of strength. Not the kind you perform, but the kind you become. Through the teachings of Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and timeless Stoic truths, we'll explore what it means to be unmoved by provocation, steady in silence, and powerful in restraint. You'll learn how to remain composed in conflict, act without announcement, and live without needing permission. This is not about withdrawing from life, but about showing up in it, fully rooted and unbreakable. If you've ever felt pulled by noise, judgment, or emotion, this is your path back to clarity, purpose, and inner freedom. Unprovoked, the power of inner calm. In this world of constant conflict and noise, people assume that in order to be respected, you must react, retaliate, and prove that you're not weak, but that's merely an instinctual response, not strength. And the moment you let your instincts control you, you've handed over the reins of your life to someone else. A man who has lived, who has trained himself to master his emotions, does not respond immediately. He pauses, observes, breathes, and chooses his response, not because he is weak, but because he understands one fundamental truth. I cannot control others, but I have full control over myself. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The nearer a man comes to a calm mind, the closer he is to strength." In the midst of chaos, the one who remains composed owns the stage. I once witnessed a man being criticized publicly in front of a crowd, rather than reacting. He simply smiled, remained silent, his gaze unwavering, no rebuttal, no scowl. The room fell quiet, and in that moment, people began to respect him, while the attacker slowly shrank in the noise of his own outrage. Inner calm is not something you can borrow. It's not something you can fake. It comes only through training. You don't have to be cold or emotionless, but you must learn to choose what deserves your energy and what should be allowed to pass without a trace. Remember, not everything demands a reaction. Not everyone deserves your disturbance. Each time you choose not to be provoked, you build another layer of strength within yourself. And the man who cannot be provoked is the man who cannot be controlled. Are you ready to become that man? Stand like a mountain, presence built from inner strength. There are those who walk into a room and immediately draw every eye. Not because they speak loudly or laugh too hard, not because they seek attention, but because they stand like a mountain, steady, silent, and unshakably grounded. This kind of presence doesn't come from appearance, posture, or status. It comes from inner strength, from a man who truly knows himself, who lives in integrity, and who no longer needs external validation to feel his own worth. Stoics call this quiet strength a power that needs no performance, no dominance, but makes itself clearly felt. A man who lives with ethics, clarity, and purpose does not waver easily. He knows who he is and why he walks the path he's on. And it's this calm certainty that earns respect, sometimes even reverence. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Be like the rock that the waves keep crashing over. It stands unmoved, and the raging of the sea falls still around it." That image is the essence of resilience, not getting swept into the noise outside, and never losing the clarity within. I once knew an old boss. He never shouted. He rarely spoke, but whenever he did, the room fell quiet. Not from fear, but from respect. He didn't rush. He wasn't trying to win over anyone, but his presence had a gravity to it. Why? Because he walked into any space knowing exactly what he stood for. No one could rattle him. No one could lure him away from his principles. To develop a presence like that, you need to train 3 things. Posture. Don't slouch. Don't puff up, stand tall. Walk grounded. Look steady, your posture reflects your inner world. Mindset. Stay clear inside. Know what you live for, what is enough, and what is not worth chasing. Silence. Don't rush to speak. Don't try to prove anything. Those with real strength know when to speak and when to let others come to their own reflection. When you live like a mountain, steady, quiet, deeply rooted, you don't need to command respect. You become respectable. You don't need to defeat anyone to prove your worth. Your composure is your strength, and the world will always revere such a man. Act first, speak later. When actions speak the loudest, in a world full of people eager to talk about themselves, about what they will do, plan to do, or dream of doing, those who stay silent and simply act always command attention. You don't have to shout that you're strong. You don't need to list your accomplishments to prove your worth. If you truly live with purpose, discipline, and commitment, your actions will speak volumes. A Stoic man doesn't care about impressing people. He cares about living rightly, about fulfilling his duties, staying true to his principles, acting in accordance with reason and integrity. As Epictetus said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." In real life, it is consistent, quiet action that becomes the most credible form of expression. You don't need promises. You don't need speeches. Just keep showing up, keep doing the work. And when the results arrive, you won't have to say a word, they'll speak for you. I knew a man who never boasted about what he was building. He didn't post goals online. He didn't share future plans in every conversation. But month after month, he progressed. His business grew steadily. His family thrived. His mind remained like stone. And those who once mocked his quietness slowly changed their view. Not because he argued, not because he proved anything, but because the evidence was undeniable. There are three qualities that give action its power. Consistency. Do the work, even when no one is watching. Discipline. Do what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like it. Silence. Work quietly. Let the results make the noise. When you live this way, others will listen, even if you don't speak. Skeptics will respect you not because they were persuaded, but because they cannot ignore what you've built. So remember, you don't need to say you're strong. Live strong, and the world will understand. Silent in the face of attacks. The strength of non-reaction. In moments of insult, humiliation, or personal attack, our first instinct is often to react, to retaliate with words, to defend with arguments, or worse, lose control of our emotions and let anger take the lead. But those who are truly strong, they don't react. They choose silence. And in that silence, they unsettle the attacker more than any reaction ever could. Imagine someone waiting for you to explode. They're expecting anger. They're hoping you'll burn yourself, trying to reclaim your pride. But you do nothing. You stay calm. You don't even seem to care. At that moment, you've taken back control. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If someone does you wrong, ask yourself, is this truly a harm? And if so, can I be harmed unless I agree to be?" The nature of insult is like bait. It only works if you bite, but if you let it pass quietly, it becomes nothing more than empty words. The Stoics understood that silence is not weakness. It is strength, well trained and conscious. There was a woman I once knew, working in a cutthroat office environment. Colleagues gossiped behind her back, openly questioned her competence in front of her superiors. Most would have snapped, retaliated, or walked away. But not her. She did only one thing, kept doing her job quietly, consistently, excellently. What happened? Within a few months, her results spoke louder than any rumors. The gossip faded, her work stood firm, and those who once mocked her began to watch their words around her. Non-reaction doesn't mean lack of feeling. It's a conscious decision not to let fleeting emotions damage lasting value. You may feel angry, you may feel hurt, but you don't show it. You let calmness become your armor, causing the attacker to second-guess their own tactics. So how do you practice this? Pause before reacting. One deep breath, one mental step back. That's enough to break the emotional reflex. Separate the insult from yourself. Their words are their issue, not the truth of who you are. Choose dignity over winning a moment of anger, because real victory is not sinking to their level. Remember, your silence, if it comes from inner strength, will ensure they never try to disrespect you again. And when you master the art of staying still in the face of attack, you don't just defeat others, you master yourself. No one can read you. When discretion becomes a strategic advantage, there's a type of person who always makes others cautious. Not because they're threatening, not because they speak too much, but because they're discreet. You don't know what they're thinking. You can't predict what they'll do next. And that very unpredictability makes them powerful. In a time when everyone is quick to share their emotions, intentions, weaknesses, and conflicts, whether online or in idle conversations, the one who holds back becomes the one in control. The Stoic rule is simple. You don't need the world to know what you're thinking. Awareness often comes from knowing what to withhold, not what to express. If you're too easy to read, you're easy to manipulate. They'll know what triggers you. They'll know your weaknesses, your fears, your desires, and they'll press right where it hurts. But if you know how to hold yourself, you become a quiet force, not because you lie, but because you choose carefully what to reveal. You let others see the surface, while the depths remain hidden. You make them guess. And while they're busy guessing, you're already 10 steps ahead. There was a man I once knew, working in finance. In every meeting, he spoke last, if he spoke at all. He listened, observed, and only when necessary, shared his thoughts. But whenever he did, the room quieted. Not because he held the highest rank, but because when he spoke, it was always sharp, clear, and weighty. The rest of the time he stayed silent. People like that don't need to appear smart. They make others believe they are. So how do you become more unreadable and discreet? Keep your priorities private. No one needs to know your next move, your emotional truths, or your long-term vision, unless it serves a greater purpose. Observe more, respond less. The more you talk, the more you reveal. The more you observe, the more you understand. Use silence as a tool. When you don't rush to react, others start guessing, and in that process, they reveal themselves instead. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The wise man doesn't need to explain himself. The fool won't understand. Even if you do, you don't need to be understood. You just need to know who you are and hold that quietly. Let the world guess, while you move forward deeper, quieter, stronger. In the silence of real power, moving in silence, the strength of unannounced action, there is a kind of power that needs no introduction, no applause, no spotlight, no validation. It is the power of someone who acts in silence. In a world where everyone rushes to share every goal, every plan, every step, they who choose not to talk, but simply do, will always have the deepest impact. Because those who speak much often do little, and those who do rarely need to speak. Stoicism doesn't celebrate grand promises. It celebrates discipline, not loud declarations, but steady, quiet action, especially when no one is watching. What's so powerful about silent action? Imagine you're in a race. The guy next to you won't stop bragging about how fast he'll run, how many records he'll break. You say nothing. You warm up, breathe steady, and run, not for attention. But when you cross the finish line, you've already won. No need for noise. The result speaks. The Stoics understood, talking creates expectations. Action creates results. No one can stop a person whose plans are hidden. When you work hard without broadcasting your every step, you protect yourself from outside doubts, unwanted advice, And the invisible weight of public pressure working in silence doesn't mean you lack confidence. On the contrary, it's the deepest kind of self-assurance. How do you make your actions louder than words? Don't announce until you're ready. Every time you say what you'll do, you give others the chance to question or influence you. Keep it to yourself until it's done. Focus on the process, not the praise. Every quiet hour of work, every private commitment is a wordless declaration that you're building something real. Let results speak. When you achieve something, you won't need to say a word. People will feel it. The one who works in silence needs no proof, because they already know who they are and where they're going. Don't let noise steal your focus. Just act, just move, just endure. And when the results come, you won't need to speak. The world will listen. You don't need permission to be yourself. The strength of self-ownership. Most people live as if they're borrowing their lives from someone else. They walk carefully, always looking back to see who's watching. Every time they want to speak from the heart, they hesitate. What will people think? Will one be judged? And so they stay silent, shrink themselves, trading inner truth for external acceptance. Stoicism doesn't teach you to please others. Stoicism teaches you to take ownership of yourself. A person who lives based on how others see them will never be free. They become a puppet pulled by the strings of society's expectations. And the more they try to fit in, the smaller, more invisible, and more lost they feel. But when you stop, when you no longer ask for permission to live truthfully, a shift happens. You enter the realm of true autonomy. You don't need anyone's approval to say what you believe is right. You don't need validation to pursue what gives your life meaning. You don't need applause to walk your path, because you know your worth is not measured by that noise. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If you are pained by any external thing, it is not this thing that disturbs you, but your own judgment about it. And it is in your power to wipe out that judgment now." Rejection, criticism, misunderstanding, these are not the sources of pain. Pain only arises when you agree with how others define you. Remember, the brave are not those who avoid judgment. They are the ones who live truthfully even while being judged. So how do you live without asking for permission? Clarify your core values. When you know what truly matters, integrity, courage, honesty, praise, and blame become background noise. Practice inner consent. Before doing anything, don't ask, "What will they think?" Ask, "Is this aligned with the person I'm becoming?" Accept loss to preserve your selfhood. You may lose a few relationships, a few opportunities, a bit of comfort, but you'll keep the one thing that matters most, yourself. When you stop seeking permission to be yourself, you begin to walk with power. You stop living by expectations and start living by direction. You stop reacting and start acting with purpose. You stop trying to be liked and start focusing on living with dignity. And eventually, you'll realize freedom doesn't come from everyone agreeing with you. Freedom comes from no longer needing them to. Steady in adversity. Don't let others manipulate you. In a world where people constantly try to influence one another through words, emotions, and calculated silence, holding your ground becomes both an art and a rare kind of strength. You'll meet people who deliberately trigger your emotions. A sarcastic remark, a cold stare, a subtle provocation. Not because they're strong, but because they're testing your weak spots. And the moment you react, anger, irritation, justification, or attempts to correct them, you've handed them the remote control to your mind. The Stoic doesn't react emotionally. The Stoic chooses to respond rationally. Because the wise understand, others can only manipulate you when they know what causes you to lose control. Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. It's not the world that wounds you. It's your response to the world that causes the pain." Picture this. Someone throws an insult at you. It flies like an arrow, aimed at your chest. But you don't open yourself to catch it. You don't argue back. You don't try to win the exchange. You stand calm, silent, grounded. The arrow falls to the floor. Harmless, off target. That non-reaction? That's how you dissolve the power of aggression. How can you stay steady in adversity? Practice observation over reaction. When something pushes your buttons, pause, take a breath. Don't respond in the first 3 seconds. That's where instinct ends and character begins. Ask yourself, is this worth my energy? Most of the time, it's not. Most provocations are cheap and unworthy of your attention. Build an internal no-access zone. Train a part of yourself that no one can touch, a space of clarity, dignity, and calm. Whoever guards that space cannot be manipulated. Steadiness is not a feeling. Steadiness is a choice. The choice not to get dragged into battles that don't matter. When you do this, others might criticize you, but they can't touch you. They can say what they want, but you won't react the way they want. And this off-script response makes you mysterious, immovable, unconquerable. Remember, a strong person doesn't seek to manipulate others, but they never allow anyone to manipulate them. Change your perspective. True power lies within. Here's a truth. Many people spend their whole lives trying to understand. No one can truly hurt you, destabilize you, or trap you in anxiety unless you give them that power. Your anger, that's a choice. Your insecurity, a viewpoint. Your fear, doubt, self-pity, all come from one unconscious decision, letting your mind be controlled by things outside of you. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." The Stoic does not try to change the world. They change the way they receive the world. Consider a familiar situation. Someone insults you. Your first instinct is pain or anger, but then you pause and ask, why should I believe them? Why should someone who doesn't truly know me get to define me? And you choose not to believe. You hold firm to your values. You refuse to let their perception enter your inner space. In that moment, you reclaim your power. Strength is not about avoiding hardship. It's about not letting hardship distort your clarity. The Stoic sees challenges as teachers, criticism as mirrors to observe, not fear, failures as building blocks for inner resilience. Here are 3 ways to shift your perspective and reclaim your inner authority, from reaction to observation. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Ask, what is this trying to teach me? From others to self, what people think of you matters far less than the values you're choosing to live by. From victim to author, you're not someone being moved by circumstances. You're someone choosing how to respond, and in doing so, choosing your life. Power is not in the hands of others. It lies in how you choose to see everything. People may take your job, your money, your relationships, but if you hold on to perspective and inner freedom, you've lost nothing essential. And this is the destination Stoicism brings you to. Not power over others, but power over yourself. Not control of the world, but mastery of your inner life amidst the world's chaos. Because when your perspective changes, your life changes. And your journey, it doesn't end here. It's only just beginning from within.